resolved to be more vigilant in avoiding GMOs? Raise your hand. And how many of you resolved to be more active in educating people about GMOs? Raise your hand.
That's almost the whole crowd. I'm going to fill you in because I know you can't see this real clearly.
Okay, so that tells me that we have a tool, a very powerful tool, to create the tipping point. And if it's just a numbers game, which I think it is, it's simply a matter of getting this tool or other tools like this in front of enough people so that we get our 5% of Americans. And since, as you just showed, the same message that changes people's diet also helps the message go viral because everyone becomes a messenger. So I encourage you to become part of the outreach. We have many, many ways to do that. At responsibletechnology.org, you can sign up for our newsletter. One's about to go out, I think, tomorrow, and you can forward that to people. We have the Tipping Point Network with over 8,000 people from around the country who bring the message and the information to people in their area. We're starting specific spearheaded outreach to the religious communities, to the healthcare communities, to the patient groups, to farmers and veterinarians, to moms, and we'd love to have support in the Santa Fe and New Mexico area. We have a speaker training program if you'd like to speak before groups, and it's about a 10-hour online program, and we've taught over 800 people how to speak on GMOs. Or you basically want to get a bunch of copies of this DVD and send it out to your friends and create a lending library, because as you know from your experience, people become more vigilant in avoiding GMOs and more active in educating. And simply making this video viral will make the difference we need if it's in large enough numbers. We'll have an opportunity next month for you to help place the shorter version of this film on PBS in your local area. So please sign up for our newsletter and we'll let you know all the details about what you can do to encourage your local area PBS to run it, and how you might be able to help get the word out so that people see it in large numbers. Again, we're right now at a very exciting time. There's more than 20 states that have active campaigns to get GMOs labeled. Whole Foods, as you probably know, just recently announced that within 5 years, everything in their store will have to be either labeled non-GMO, project verified, or organic, or have a GMO label. So they're going to enforce mandatory labeling. There's some major food companies that haven't yet revealed who they are, but are quietly removing GMOs from their products so that they too can announce non-GMO status. And it was the fastest growing sector of a health claim last year in 2012. It grew 26%, about $3.5 billion in sales, just in the non-GMO label. And the statement by the Whole Foods president to USA Today was extremely important and a very clear sign of a coming tipping point. He said that when a food becomes non-GMO project verified, it gets a bump up in sales of 15 to 30%. Now that kind of number is extremely interesting to the rest of the food industry. And they realize that there's huge market advantage, certainly within the health-conscious community. But since that word is now getting out to a larger base, I think it's providing the impetus and motivation for a lot of food executives to move forward with plans to remove GMOs. And so we're at a very important time, and we have a series of campaigns to make it not only quicker, but deeper, so that it doesn't just happen with derivatives of GM crops, but also with animal feed derived crops like milk and meat, or foods like milk and meat. So we encourage you to get involved, because now is an incredible time to accelerate what's already going on. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure that this group in Santa Fe will get involved. I'm going to turn my mic off so the other two live mics can go on. Here comes your first question.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ethan. I work with Food and Water Watch New Mexico, and we just had a GMO labeling campaign in the state legislature, which failed. But here at the city level, we've had city councilors and the mayor sign on to a resolution exploring the potential for GMO labeling within the city, and we're taking that to the county as well. So I wanted to ask you, what can be done? I know it's harder because we don't have statutory force of law behind this. What can be done at municipal level or the county level to create really a strong GMO labeling campaign?
My opinion about these labeling campaigns is that they provide a framework for a lot of attention, both from activists but also from the media, and that it's an absolute fantastic opportunity to bring in behavior change messaging. As you just saw with the hands raised after tonight's showing, the large majority of people are willing to change, perhaps give up brands that they grew up with because of the knowledge of GMOs. We've had a situation nationally where the mainstream media has been reticent to talk about the health dangers in any meaningful way. So my strong opinion on this is that when you introduce the dialogue with the local city council, with the reporters, etc., is to make sure you bring out the behavior change messaging so that when it's covered, when it's reviewed, that people realize that GMOs are not actually safe, that there's a split of opinions on this. There's one side that told us that Agent Orange, DDT, and PCBs were safe, and lied, and overran the FDA's own scientists' opinion. And then there's thousands of doctors now prescribing non-GMO diets, reporting that people are getting better from a variety of diseases and disorders, and there's sufficient evidence in just the animal feeding studies to prompt medical organizations like the American Academy of Environmental Medicine to ask all doctors to prescribe non-GMO diets to their patients. So to me, especially because there's no binding law, there could be resolutions, especially because it's more symbolic. I think if I were in your shoes, I'd commit myself to laying out a portfolio of messaging tactics, which one, highlights the risks of GMOs, two, shows that the approval process is a sham and that it was basically a corrupted approval process. It's not really approval, as you know. And three, that some of the discredit the actions and basis of the biotech industry by showing that it rigs research, that it attacks scientists, that it continues to give messaging that is basically mythology. And that way we use this local resolution process and the coverage around it and the meetings around it as an education tool, and then harvest the interest by continually growing the email lists to go back to those same people who expressed interest with more information and later on more opportunities for change locally and nationally.
Hi, hello. My name's Hannah, and I'm actually also out here with Food and Water Watch. And I just wanted to do a quick plug that we're passing around a petition. So we just passed the city resolution. We're now moving on to a county ordinance that would actually ban the cultivation of GE crops here. And then, moreover, we're just working to build up this citizen group of people who are working towards labeling. So if you're interested in getting involved, definitely sign the petition and put down your contact info.
Excellent.
Anybody else?
My name is Mitch, and I'm with Move On. With our lobbying effort with the legislature on labeling, it passed 2 committees, and then the lobbyists for the dairy industry got it defeated on the House floor. I'm wondering if you can suggest any strategies to deal with the dairy industry in particular.
Well, did your labeling bill require labels for milk from cows treated that were fed GMOs?
No.
Interesting. So they were just stopping it now so that it wouldn't later have an influence? Is that right?
Yes.
I think that in Vermont in 2004, a co-op had a table in front and it asked for $10 donations, and for every $10 donation, they gave a Seeds of Deception book, my first book, to every legislator. And that was a time when the legislators were considering the first state regulation on GMOs, which was seed labeling law. And a master's degree student did his thesis on the impact of the book on the eventual passage of that regulation. And he interviewed more than a dozen legislators, and they said that the book was the basis of every conversation on GMOs once it arrived, and it changed people's opinion. And I think that the movie is more powerful than the book because a lot of people won't take the time to read the book, but they may take the time to watch the movie. And I think that I want to see if this works. I'd like to see if delivering the movie to a significant number of legislators with enough of their constituents suggesting that they watch it might antidote them to the dairy industry tactics. And then once they see it and get encouraged, then if they could then encourage their colleagues to watch it, I think that might be a technique, and we'll try it, anywhere that we can, we'll try it to see if it works. It might be a technique to disable the lobbying strength of the dairy or other industries. And then within the dairy side, what we want to do, and this is medium term, it's not something short term, we would like to establish a surveillance program to evaluate the impact of GM feed on the animal health as well as milk production. You saw in the film just now at least 6 different examples of animals that when they switched from GM to non-GM, their health improved, and in some cases the milk production improved. So if you have any farmers or veterinarians on our side willing to help explore this area, that could be an inroad in the medium term to the dairy industry if they realize what we know, and that is that GMOs are likely cause of lower milk production, but also the epidemic of reproductive failures and low conception rates among dairies, which was described by Ford's Dairyman, which is a industry magazine that's very well respected. What they described was the lower conception rate. What we're talking about is a possible link to GMOs that they haven't put together. So that's another way, again, in the medium term to get there. But I think try using the film even among some of the dairymen in your area and see if that gets traction, because they may want to switch out of GMOs to see what's effect on the cows. And if they do, and there's positive impact, that could then have a big effect on the others.
Thank you, Jeffrey, so much for all you have done and all you're doing in this very important area. I had signed up for the Tipping Point Network a couple of months ago, but we haven't seemed to pull a local group together yet here. It seems to me clear what we can do on an individual level, but I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the Tipping Point Network and what we might do on a communal level.
Well, the Tipping Point Network is, we have a director in Southern California, Stacy, and we have dozens of groups around the country, and they do different things. During a time when there's a ballot initiative and signatures are needed, or during a legislative action, sometimes the Tipping Point Network will choose to work on that. Sometimes they'll focus on bringing it to a school, or bringing it to parents, or certain religions. or they'll focus on a regular movie night like you have here, where it's about GMOs and then they have a discussion afterwards like we're having now. They may set up talks for anyone in the group who's a speaker, or they may set up speakers to come from a distance. If there's writers in the group, then they may end up submitting letters or op-ed pieces or articles. They may get interviewed in the local radio stations or get on TV, especially Sunday morning talk shows. So we have all of these as options in our materials, and it partly depends on the number of people in your area that are members of the Tipping Point, the skill set that they have, and the specific environment or context that you're in. Because it's often dictated by the tendencies and desires of who's in the group. But since you are interested in the Tipping Point, why don't you indicate now where you'll be at the end of the night and have a piece of paper so people can put their name and email address and zip code, and maybe phone number if you like, to join in the Tipping Point Network, and then you can help enroll them and then have a meeting, and maybe have a meeting in a week or two so that you can see who, and you can also put the word out through the Tipping Point, through Stacy to anyone else that's signed up in your region, and get started. And in fact, I'd like to ask how many people there would be interested in joining the Tipping Point Network and get involved in GMO outreach. Can you raise your hand now?
Okay, that's a fair number of hands in the room.
All right, give yourself a hand. That's great. This is great. You see, just showing the film and having a discussion afterwards creates two lists for you. One list is people that want to receive information but don't necessarily want to be active. So you can sign them up for our Spilling the Beans newsletter, or if you have a local thing, you can add that as well. And then the second list are those that want to organize. So maybe you have a dozen people now. If you show the film in different areas, different times, and you're pulling together people like that, you can have a rather substantial group very quickly. And if your meetings are fun, and I recommend having really fun meetings, then the sticky factor will be great, and you'll not only maintain, but you'll expand. And then with that amount of resources, you can come up with some great strategies, and we'll support you.
Hi, Jeffrey. It's Robin from La Montanita Co-op, and as always, I'm a big fan of your work. You know that. It's been for years that I've been following you, so thank you for this wonderful new movie. I loved it. I just, while we're doing a quick plug, I want to say that Andrew Kimbrell, who you saw in Jeffrey's movie, is going to be here in New Mexico on April 6th, and he's well worth the trip down the hill to UNM in Albuquerque to participate with him for the day at the 31st Beyond Pesticides National Forum. And I also have a quick question. We have an organization, and Nassar is here, working very hard on GMO chili, because while we also face all the national issues, we have one that is very specific to New Mexico, and that is the genetic modification of green chili, which is a staple and traditional crop here in New Mexico. And I'm wondering if you have any suggestions on that sort of organizing issue in particular, beyond just buying from our local farmers, so who pledge not to support GMO chili. And thanks again for your work.
You're welcome. I think that if I were in your position, I would encourage the tipping point networks in the state to work on that area as one of their options. Because it is, as I say, the local context has helped dictate what the strategy is. I think the chili issue is very important. Now, there's two types of activism. You mentioned Andy Kimbrell, a brilliant activist, lawyer, whose focus primarily through Center for Food Safety has been on the one hand containment, which means trying to prevent the expansion of GMOs into new crops or new areas. So he's sued successfully and sometimes delayed the introduction, for example, of alfalfa. The second strategy is elimination, to not just contain GMOs, but to eliminate them completely. And for that, the tipping point is a major strategy, or labeling, which can precipitate a tipping point. is a similar strategy. Now, whenever our Institute for Responsible Technology engages in containment strategies for salmon or whatever, we also bring out behavior change messaging. We expose the health dangers, expose the sham, so that the same messaging venue can also drive the tipping point. And so my recommendation is that when you go after chili, that you use the toolbox that we have. We have brochures, we have this film, we have other DVDs, we have books available. Andy's book is on our site as well. And use the full education package. What came to me immediately, since this is a local issue, is to engage the high school students and maybe even lower level and college students and bring to them a specific piece of curriculum couched in the context of current event discussion, and ask them to have the students engage in a debate on whether GM chili should be introduced, and provide them with the film and other materials from the no side, and then engage them with the whole curriculum concept to schools in your area and around the state, and make sure that it's seeded with all of the hard-hitting information that we have, and then ways that they can get in touch with you for further information, so that whoever does take that up, students get in touch with you, the teachers get in touch with you, whether it's high school or college or others. And that's one way that you might end up engaging a discussion that could become with thousands of people or tens of thousands of people if it goes statewide. And then you can also encourage, when you connect with the students, letters to the editor and op-ed pieces, so you can build an army at that level. So that's one thing. The second is that when you talk to the chili industry, it would be very important to bring them the evidence that when an industry introduces a genetically engineered variety, the market can drop for everyone who's in that commodity. So when 25% of the corn growers in the U.S. or 25% of the acres were genetically engineered, the EU stopped importing 99.4% of U.S. corn. So the entire corn growers industry suffered, and the prices dropped dramatically and had to be propped up with heavy subsidies from the U.S. government. When Canada introduced GM canola, they lost the European market for canola and for honey because of the contamination. Especially look at the export market for chili from the area, because that would be easiest to demonstrate problems with. When they tried to introduce wheat in 2004, Monsanto, I think it was 2004, Monsanto gave it up, I think on May 10th, because they realized that if they introduced the wheat, it would cut U.S. exports by 30 to 50% and cut prices by up to 50%, because the foreign markets were going to say no to all of the GM wheat. I'm not sure of those numbers, but it's in a university, an Iowa State University report. It's easy to get. I do know that the Canadian Wheat Board said that they would lose 87% of their export markets if any genetically engineered wheat were grown in Canada. So these are examples, like the coffee growers in Hawaii made sure that there'd be no even an outdoor test plot of GM coffee because of the potential loss of markets and their premium prices as a result that could result. There's the rice contamination that occurred because of a field trial that cost about $1 billion to the rice industry. So to go to the chili industry with the same kind of information we've been bringing to the apple industry and the salmon industry and the rice industry and the wheat industry, to bring that information to them, saying that an introduction of GM chili could cause devastating consequences to non-GM chili, is a very important angle. And so I would suggest that the academics among you, the writers among you, work with the information that's already well out on the internet and pull it together for a presentation. And you can get that from a variety of organizations, including our Institute for Responsible Technology.
Thank you. My name is Kendall, and I work at the Santa Fe Farmers Market Institute here. And one of the things that I work on is increasing access to nutritional food to people in our community that are low income and nutritionally underserved. And so I was reading some commentary recently, and I've been hearing about it more and more, about the fact that I guess what you would call health food stores are marking up the prices of genetically modified food because they know that they can turn it to a niche market. And that's like messed up. So I mean, like, there was this political cartoon that I saw about how there was like two devils, and on one side you have Monsanto, who is, you know, creating this genetically modified food, and on the other side you have this niche market who is marking up the price because they know that the other food is poison. So I guess my question is that, seeing those challenges and that not everybody can shop at Whole Foods, a lot of people, and at one point in the documentary it talked about how a lot of WIC formula was made with soy, genetically modified soy. So what are some of the ways that you think that, you know, through market response, because you were talking about if we can educate people to not buy it, then the market is always going to respond because that is, you know, by nature how a capitalist market works. So what are some of the ways that we can combat that and make sure that we have nutritional, non-GMO food that is available to everybody, seeing as how, you know, the majority of people that suffer from obesity and a lot of these diseases are nutritionally underserved and low income?
Thank you. Great question. So I assume you meant that you thought that there was a markup of non-GMO food, not the GMO food.
Yeah, there's a markup of non-GMO food because they know that people who can afford it won't buy non-GMO. So they're turning it into a niche market rather than a market that really needs to be there in the first place.
So I haven't heard that. What I've heard is that there's a market between organic milk and conventional milk for RBGH-free milk. That has a premium, so that's being charged. People are charging more for that. I haven't heard that companies are specifically marking up the prices of the non-GMO. We've heard that the sales go up dramatically for products that switch to non-GMO, but I haven't heard the prices. But that still doesn't answer the question about the underserved and those in food deserts and those with low income. We have a relationship with a company called the Green Polka Dot Box, where we recommend it. People go to our link, they sign up, and then our institute gets a very tiny percentage of that. The reason we did it was not to get the tiny percentage. The reason we did it is because they offer food by mail, which is free shipping above a certain amount. I think it's $75, where it's 20 to 60% off the retail price. So we encourage people who are in food deserts or low income who had no access to non-GMO or organic to consider using the Green Polka Dot Box link that we send out. It's somewhere on our site, because then they can afford sometimes to get the non-GMO where they might not otherwise be able to afford it. The co-op can also provide a great source of local, low-cost non-GMO. And we have a non-GMO shopping guide at non-GMOshoppingguide.com, obviously, with over 9,000 products now. And but also encouraging people to learn how to read the labels. So if you go to a regular supermarket and you can't afford or you don't want to get organic, you can go to the tomato sauce section and you can buy Ragu Light, which is made of olive oil, and avoid the Ragu Chunky, which is made with soybean oil and high fructose corn syrup. And you won't be going to a health food store, you won't be paying a premium, you'll just be knowing how to read the labels and avoid the processed foods that contain GMOs. And of course, looking from scratch is so easy to avoid GMOs because in the produce section, there's only 4 potential offenders. The corn on the cob, the zucchini, the crookneck squash, and the papaya. Everything else is non-GMO. So for those that can do that, it should be easy to keep costs low. As far as the WIC program, everything in the WIC program is genetically engineered for the baby food, whether it's soy or not. If it's not soy, then it's from cows treated with bovine growth hormone and should have high fructose corn syrup. So there are some websites that tell parents how to make their own baby formula. I'm not an expert, it's not on our site. That is a very serious issue because infants are most at risk for the potential dangers.
Thank you. I think we have one question here. This woman wants to know where she can buy the film, but she's not on the internet.
All right, so it's available at geneticroulettemovie.com, but it's being sold around the country at various places. If you contact a local store, and they can do business with us through the internet, they can order a bunch. No one's asked me that question before. Maybe get a friend to get it on the internet. You just go to geneticroulettemovie.com and you can order it there. You can even watch it online through our site or through Amazon.com.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm very impressive film, and I was intrigued by the tipping point question, and also by the thought of the PR public relations possibilities of a condensed version on PBS television. And I'm just wondering what we could do locally to encourage the PBS station to run that.
Well, what I'd like you to do is to go to our website, responsibletechnology.org, and sign up for the newsletter Spilling the Beans. Everyone who's a subscriber will receive an answer to that question. We haven't created it yet. We will soon.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So she earlier mentioned the mark about the organics and non-GMO foods in health food stores, and I know a lot of that has to do with, like you said, the organic industry has typically not received the subsidies that the industrial agricultural complex has. And I'm just wondering what the current state is. Are there government subsidies available for organic food, the organic food industry, and is there any way that we can work towards funding and subsidizing that industry? What are your thoughts?
I haven't heard of any subsidies going to organic. I've heard that less than 1% of the Farm Bill budget goes to support organic, sustainable. There are organizations that work on the Farm Bill. I think RAFI, R-A-F-I, is one of them. There's others. I think that if you'd like to get involved in that, find an organization that has a lobbying strategy that can involve you. It's not something that our institute is involved in at this point.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, we have one more question, and then we will let you go. So here it is.
That's good, I guess, huh? My question is about, there's obviously, your film highlights the importance of non-GMOs for children and non-GMOs for health. And I wonder if you know of any hospitals and schools that are becoming non-GMO certified in their kitchens and in the food that they prepare and give. And whether you think, whether anybody is working on that, because it seems like it would be a good way for these organizations, one, for their marketing efforts, but also for their stewardship in health and children.
We're looking at ways so that food services as well as restaurants could more easily identify and order non-GMO products, and then we will unleash that through all of the people that are our subscribers. So please sign up for a subscription to spilling the beans, and you'll get that information as well. There's an organization called Healthcare Without Harm, where they've had a number of hospitals sign a pledge for healthier food, which includes the elimination of bovine growth hormone in the dairy stream. But they've also condemned GMOs as an organization, and I don't know if any of the people that signed the pledge, any of the hospitals that signed the pledge, are actually actively removing GMOs. I haven't heard of it, but we now have thousands of doctors prescribing non-GMO diets, and so I'm encouraged by that, and I think that getting into the institutional level is just a matter of time. There's been efforts for schools around the country to have healthier foods, and some of them institute organic food. Some have introduced the fresh cooked food instead of the processed reheated foods, and showed a complete difference in the behavior of the kids. And that we show in the movie, and if you buy the DVD, Hidden Dangers in Kids' Meals, on the same disc, there's a bonus piece about Appleton, Wisconsin schools where that happened. It was quite an amazing story, and it's very encouraging to schools to make the change. They saved money elsewhere when they made the change, when they spent more money on the food. But I don't have a list of those that are eliminating GMOs at this point, and I'd like to have a list soon.
3 seconds, here we go. My mic's working. Thank you so much for all that you're doing, for the wonderful film, and for being with us tonight. All right. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And now we'll let you go to sleep.
Bye.
All right, thanks so much.
Bye-bye.